chapter 20. It's finally arrived, 20 videos under the belt, or with this one. So if you go back and you watch the first video again, when I talk about what kind of content is going to be on this channel, well, it's going to be stuff that I'm just doing day to day. And the day-to-day task that I'm doing today is doing a little bit of preparation for my Tuesday afternoon turning class. So this coming Tuesday is going to be the last day of turning in this class. After that, we're going to move on to woodworking projects that involve a few more machines. And the reason we're doing that is because this experience that I'm providing is basically to give them the same experience that students who were attending our high school here would have had at Industrial Arts. So, excuse me, that's what we're doing. So for the last day of turning, I promised my students that we would do something that I think is probably one of the most fun things to do when you're turning, and that's turn a green bowl. They're a lot of fun to do, at least I think they are, and we tend to do them with the adult classes that have been hosted out of this shop, so I thought we should give them the experience as well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to prepare a green or wet bowl blank, okay? So I have a nice piece of birch here that is native to Saskatchewan. For those of you that live in other parts, especially on the east coast of this country in the US, you guys are blessed with hardwoods like walnut and cherry and you name it, you have it out there. Birch is about the only real hardwood that we have here, so it's what we use the most. Often people will burn this in their fireplaces. So this is a piece of firewood. That's how it was purchased. When you're going to cut down a tree and use it for turning wood, it's very, very important that you get the ends sealed as quickly as you can. You want to control the moisture that's leaving this log so that it doesn't split and crack on the ends. Unfortunately, I've made this mistake many times on my own. When I was teaching, I was always busy and somebody would drop off some wood and I wouldn't get to it. And by the time I cut it up into blanks, it was almost too late. So it's important when that tree hits the ground that you're putting something on the end right away. And what I've been using for this over the years is this Lee Valley end sealer. Seems to work pretty good. Again, the people on the East Coast and people in the United States, I hear a lot of talk about anchor seal, which I don't even know if I could get anchor seal here. I've actually never tried. So, but that seems to be a good product as well. But you want to get that dealt with right away. Now, when people who aren't familiar with turning look at this and say, well, okay, I'm going to cut bowl blanks out of here. Well, how hard can that be? Just cut it off here and voila, there's your bowl blank. Not quite that simple. If you would do that, you would end up turning what's referred to as an end grain turning. And I really don't know of anybody who turns end grain bowls. I've turned a little bit of end grain, for example, finishing the inside of a goblet or something like that. Then you're turning end grain. But to do a whole large bowl as an end grain turning, not all that, most people just don't do it. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to cut this down the middle like that. And then I'm going to take, sorry for stepping out there, I'm going to take a pattern and I'm going to cut it round like that. So in the end, I'm going to end up with a bowl blank that looks somewhat similar to this. Okay, now that piece, a little bit of a smaller piece of wood, but basically it came out of the tree like that. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, there are a couple of things that are important when you're going to do that. And the one piece of anatomy, of tree anatomy that you need to be able to identify is the pith. The very, very center of the tree. The pith is usually a very unstable wood that is not typically used when you're making a woodworking project, or a bowl for that matter. So now this isn't a very big piece of wood. If I had a large piece of wood, I'd probably make a cut on either side of the pith. But since I just have a smaller piece, I'm going to cut right through the pith, and then we're going to surface the pith, as much of it as we can, off when we mount the blank on the lathe. So we're going to turn some of this off as well. But that's what we're going to do today. Yeah, well, now I wouldn't necessarily do this. Let's say I had a bunch of wood here that I was going to cut up and process into turning blanks. I probably wouldn't do all the marking on it that I'm going to do with this one. But if you've never done this before, I just want to show you a little bit what I'm going to be doing, and I think maybe some lines would be beneficial to you or to me. Okay, so yeah, that's not sitting quite. I took the liberty earlier of making 2 center marks. I'm just going to take a marker, and this doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, that's that. And then the other thing is, we want to try to make kind of a plumb cut. Okay, let's see if we can hold that. It's a little squirrely on this table here, but something like that. Maybe better without the ruler. Now I'll use these lines as kind of a quick reference for the chainsaw. And I'm going to cut this blank in half like this with the chainsaw. And then we're going to move over to the bandsaw to cut the discs. Most of you, I would think, if you're cutting and processing these blanks, you would be doing this with a chainsaw. Now I have a cordless chainsaw that I bought just for this purpose. The thing I like about it is I don't have to go outside now in the dark and in the cold and start up a chainsaw and cut turning blanks, because I don't like the cold and I like it where it's warm. So I can plug the battery into my chainsaw and I can make all my cuts, and that's what I like. The other way I could do it, and if you have access to this, you could as well. This bandsaw has a riser kit in it, would probably make this cut. But I do have a resaw, or a bandsaw that I've set up for resawing, with a 3-horse motor and a 1-inch blade, which makes very quick work of this first cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move into a little jig that I made on the floor, and maybe that's one thing to talk about quickly yet. If you're going to process wood with a chainsaw, make sure that you've made things that the log can be held without you having to reach for it or chase it around or hold it with your foot or whatever. Make sure that it's held in place firmly, and then you can cut it and you can focus on the cut and not hurt yourself with the chainsaw. Okay, we're going to set up on the floor and make a cut. Okay, I have you in fairly close. You're not going to see me in all of this. I don't even know if you can see the line I made here, but it's right down the center and it drops right down the middle. And I'm going to take my chainsaw and I'm going to make that cut. Okay, I think that's a really nice straight cut. Boy, I should draw lines all the time. That really helped. You can kind of see the pith here. We're going to get rid of most of that. And yeah, they've got, looks like I bet you about 4 blanks out of this. So cool. Okay, I'm going to get it so that we can see other things besides the floor and this piece of wood, and then I'll be back. All right, we're getting ready to cut this on the bandsaw now. I have a set of discs like this. These are made out of whatever shop scraps I had laying around at the time. This happens to be 1/4-inch hardboard. Not necessary that they're that thick. In fact, a friend of mine has a whole set of these made out of cardboard, which is every bit as good. I happen to have half-inch increments from 5 inches to 14 inches. So I have quite a stack of these things, but they're quite handy when it comes to doing what I'm going to do. So what is going to happen here is, okay, I can't draw a circle on this side here and take this into the bandsaw. That would be an extremely dangerous cut. In fact, if you're looking for bandsaw safety instruction, it's it'll be chapter 3 or 4, something like that. I did a bandsaw safety video. So check that out, because the bandsaw, when we would do our Matishal Memorial Cancer Fundraising Benefit, which was a wood turning event, and people would be using the bandsaw that shouldn't have been, and the bandsaw actually scared me the most of all the equipment we had there. So yeah, it can be quite a dangerous tool if it's not used properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over, because that's nice and stable. And then we're going to take and center this about like that. And maybe give it a little more away from the edge. That looks pretty good. Now, why did I decide on a 6.5-inch circle? Well, the little lathes that I have for my students, the distance from the center of the main shaft to the top of the banjo. Now, the banjo is sometimes known as a tool support base. And that is, well, ideally, if I cut perfectly, I could probably squeeze just a shade over 7 inches. But I'm going to make sure that they fit on the lathe, so I'm going to cut them to 6.5. Now, what I'm going to do with this one first is I'm going to cut this in half. Because I have room to do this, I'm going to get 2 out of here, 2 out of the other side. I have half the cutting for the class done. Okay, we're going to turn the saw on and make some noise. Okay, I'm going to set this aside for now. And we're going to cut the circle. Now, this isn't a super precise cut. Okay, you'll find that you'll see me dig into this pattern maybe a time or two, but you want to make sure that you're cutting as close as you can, and you also want to make sure that your hands are out of the way of the cut. All right? pull that out of there. There we go. And I'm just going to reach out of here and get. Now, you have to be careful how deep you put this screw in. Now, this is going to be, okay, if we're doing a natural edge bowl, then it doesn't matter. Because the bowl, this will get hollowed out this way. Natural edge bowls are cool. If you're going to do a typical bowl, this is going to be the foot. So there is going to be some waste material here, but just be careful. You don't really need to go in really much through the bark, just a little through the bark. Okay, and that's a pretty decent looking bowl blank. Now to finish this off, what I'm going to do with this yet, because if this is Saturday evening, we're not going to be turning these till Tuesday. So I am actually going to put some of that log sealer from Lee Valley on here all the way around to keep them wet until we're using them. But this is nice and cool. It's wet. Like it's, when we turn these, we'll probably have to spray the lathe bed with WD-40 so it doesn't rust afterwards. They're fun to turn. Okay, I'm gonna get you back so that we can wrap this up and we'll finish it off. Okay, well, we've got the cutting done and we're just gonna wrap things up here. There's one term I want to explain a little more clearly than I did in the video. How I determined that I was going to use the 6.5 inch pattern. Okay, so that's center. So, okay, this part here, I don't know if you can see that, right there, this thing is called the banjo. Don't know why, but see, I wanted to make it so that my piece clears the banjo, so students don't have to make cuts, fancy cuts to kind of make it fit on the lathe. We're just not going to do that. And these lathes are fairly small, so we have to do that. But I really, really, really like these step pulley lathes for working with younger students. They are, in my opinion, the best way to do it. But that's another discussion for maybe another video. Well, so I've got a blank here. I think while I'm out here tonight, I'm going to cut up that board for sure. Remember, I'm going to armor seal them, or use the sealer on them to make sure they don't dry out a whole bunch between now and Tuesday. And this is going to be a ton of fun. To watch when you get the gouge cutting the right way, to see that spiral shaving just wind out, you know, go for 10, 15 feet across the shop. It's just, oh, it's fun. So anyway, well, maybe one other topic before we go. Yeah, these are wet. So when this bowl is turned, in fact, we have to make sure we finish turning these bowls at the same day. So we're going to start at 1 o'clock and we're going to turn until everybody's bowl is done. Because if you would leave these to the next day, they would warp and there's a good chance they wouldn't spin properly again and you'd end up starting over and reshaping and all kinds of a mess. So these need to be finished at once or in one turn. Now, the logical question, okay, it's wet, I'm going to turn a bowl, and probably the words of, I'm going to quote Michael Hosselak on this, because at a turning class that I went to many, many years ago that he taught, basically that question got asked. And I'll never forget his answer. His answer was, well, if you turn the bowl and it doesn't warp and it doesn't change a whole bunch, you've got a nice bowl, you've got a wonderful bowl. He says, if it does warp, he says, you've got a piece of art, which is worth more than the bowl anyway. So on that note, we're going to have fun on Tuesday. It's going to be wonderful, and we'll see you with something towards the end of next week. Have a great weekend and a great week, everyone, until I talk to you again.